Welcome to Hardland Honest Mind podcast on the Livestock News Network media, livestocknewsnetwork.com. Before we get into our guest, I want to talk a little more about Rooted in Resilience, the legacy showing stories of healing and hope, Monday, May 4th, 6 o'clock at the Mitchell Event Center. Dinner will be served. We'll watch the movie and then we'll have a panel discussion. So please plan on attending. This is an amazing, amazing video, and the panel discussion will be amazing as well. Our guest today, I'm very, very excited to have a very huge voice for agriculture, an amazing voice for our agriculture, an amazing mother, and the queen of ag, Lorrie Boyer. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for asking me to be a part of this today.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've chatted a little bit back and forth for a year now, and we finally got everything going. As you know, this podcast is about mental health in rural America. You have been through some mental health things with your family. Many families face mental health crisis behind closed doors. Talk to us a little bit about what you've gone through from a parent's perspective, what it feels like, what support is needed, and what you have learned navigating mental health challenges in your family.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to be on the other side of this interview here, Jason. First off, I'm usually the one asking the questions.
Right.
And yeah, this is a little bit different than what I normally talk about, although I talk about mental health and being a farm broadcaster. But today, this is my personal story. And I'm going to be sharing as much as I can. Like you said, this is real and raw. And this is very personal to me. I have permission from my son to talk about this today, but he would rather I didn't use his name. So I'm just going to refer to him as my son. So as you mentioned, many families do face these behind closed doors. And I'm talking more from a rural perspective, I think, than anything. So being from Northeast Colorado, I do not think that people realize what goes on behind those doors unless somebody says something, because you come out and you go to work every day. I'm behind that mic every day. My husband's at his job every day. You're doing your thing and you get home and it's a whole different story. And just the things that go on and how to compartmentalize, those are some of the things I'm going to be talking about today that has been really difficult, but something we've had to navigate. And coming from this small town, I just think we all think everyone else is peachy, and we're all at sporting events, or we're at the school play, or at the school parent-teacher conferences, blah, 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 when you are in so much pain because you see your child suffering. And I can't tell you how many times that I have wished that I had that situation that is normal. People can't see my air quotes, well, unless they're watching. Normal. I don't really know what normal is anymore, but there's so many times when I've thought, if only they knew. If only they knew. And you do feel like you're on an island. You feel like you're all alone. And in a small town, I do believe it is very difficult because you don't want your child to be labeled. I didn't want my son to be that kid. So I didn't say anything for years, Jason. Now that he's graduated and now, we're not in our small town community like we were. It's a whole different ballgame. That's why I'm talking to you here today. You feel very lonely and you feel like you're on an island. And as far as what's needed, again, we're going to thread that throughout the conversation, I think, today. But what is needed is more resources and more providers, because in a small town, there's only so many providers. And not every provider is a good fit. Do you know how many providers we've been through over the years? My son started with his chronic depression, and it is a diagnosis of depression. It's not just the blues. He has something fundamentally wrong with his neurological way of thinking in his brain, anxiety, panic attacks, all the things. When he was 11, he's now 23. You know how many providers we've been through over the years because we're trying to find the right fit. And now everybody's going telehealth, and I understand that. And you and I are talking teleways right now over the computer. I get that. But telehealth isn't for everyone. And I actually fear there's a lack of connection. I've experienced it myself, and I've watched him experience that as well. So I think more in-person providers and just having more providers available, because not everyone is going to be able to. And it's really hard, Jason, when you sit in front of a provider that maybe you work with. maybe you go to church with, maybe there's some plays baseball with your son. That's a difficult thing.
Absolutely. And we talk on this show a lot about the stigma of mental health. And we have got to work really hard at getting that stigma out, getting it out of the way, because I agree, the telehealth I'm sure works for some, but that connection, when I went to Jared Sonnenberg, when I was dealing with that kind of stuff, I would have never got on a computer to do it. I would have found every excuse in the world to not hop on that computer in person.
Mhm.
Jared wasn't going to let me not show up. And I did. I told him on the first time I went to meet him, it was 10 minutes before, and I was just about to text him and say, no, I'm not coming. I got, something came up. He said, that won't work. I will find you. So having a personal connection with a good friend that does that was
Yeah.
huge for me.
Hmm. And that's probably an exception to the rule. I think that's probably a little bit more rare.
Right. Right. Yep. So, I mean, talk to us a little bit about that stigma and what you and your son have dealt with that, because small towns, everybody knows your vehicle, everybody knows where you're at. Talk a little bit about that, the
Sure.
the
Yeah. And
stigma.
this is going to be unpopular opinion, but it is what it is. So I'm being real and I'm being open and honest. But
Please.
sports is not always good for kids, okay? Especially small town sports. Now, I grew up in a larger area where sports didn't dominate everything. It wasn't until I met my husband and moved to a little town out in southeast Colorado that I realized sports is king. But sports can also be very detrimental. So when you have other parents out there and your kid doesn't make the play or they miss the shot or they do this or do that, they think the world is falling. They think the world is falling. And so very judgmental. I find other sports parents, I have found anyway, to be very judgmental on a lot of things that maybe my son did or didn't do playing sports, let alone did I want to share with them what was going on with
Sure.
him mentally. And by the way, at one point, I'm using sports as an example, but at one point he was during wrestling season in middle school and he just stopped having interest. And so that was a whole red flag for me. He after that, we didn't do sports. We didn't do anything after that, Jason, nothing, because the depression and anxiety and panic ruled our lives. But anyway, back to your point. I think the stigma, in my opinion, is better now than it ever has been because we're talking about it, because
Agree.
we're not trying to cover it up anymore, and because there's so many conversations and public service announcements and commercials and grants and blah 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 out there. I think it's becoming less of a stigma, in my opinion.
I agree. It is definitely changing. And I talked with a lady that is a mental health professor at the University of Iowa last week. And she even said, we are starting to see the change. And we talked about, now is the time we hit this hard, because people are starting to talk about it. And I have had a ton of phone calls, texts, uh, whatever they call Facebook messengers, from people that I have looked up to and respected forever. Never would have ever thought they were going through anything. And they said, until you came out, because I'm in the public a lot with my job and now with the podcast, and they said, until you came out and told your story, we would have never said a word. So I think there is a shift happening, and we've got to jump on that right now and get people talking. And I agree. I see a big change already. And I mean, I've only been doing this. I mean, I've been doing research for 8 months, but the podcast started in February. But I am seeing a lot more people show up to the Rooted in Resilience, the Comet training. I'm seeing a lot more people showing up to those. So I agree with you 100%.
Just add to that real quick too, when you go to lunch with someone or you're at a networking event or, my farm broadcaster friends across the country, when we are together covering events or we're at a meeting or at a board of directors event or something, we're talking about it over breakfast. We're talking about it over lunch. It is not a hush hush anymore. We are openly talking about issues that are going on behind the mic. And so I'm feeling that all over. And the more interviews I do with some of these agricultural groups, they're talking about it. They're starting to share their stories. They're starting to share examples. And even a couple of the networks that I work with, there's no shyness in talking about some of the things that even they're dealing with. Or, hey, can you cover markets for me because I have a therapy appointment? To me, it's just becoming more of every day. This is part of life.
It is. It absolutely is. And we all deal with some sort of it.
We do.
Um,
Mhm.
I mean, it's real and it's here. And I just, I appreciate you being on and telling your story. I think it's going to go a long ways for for other people to go, you know what, it is okay to talk about it, because it is okay to not be okay. And we need to be okay with that.
If we don't talk about it, nothing's going to change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've got to get real quick to one sponsor. We'll be right back. DGM Global Builders, Dave Marshall. Over 20 years of construction experience. They're now offering Northeast Colorado and Western Nebraska quality pole barns at reasonable prices. So whether you're looking for living quarters, farm and ranch storage, or a place to park your toys, he will give you quality work with a hometown feel. For a free consultation or quote, call Dave Marshall today. So yeah, it's huge that, and the people that are, I mean, the corporations that are promoting mental health month, that they're, I've got a friend I graduated with, Ronnie Leachman. She is back in Holdridge and works for a big electrical company. She asked if she could share my podcast. They put out a newsletter for mental health month. They're pushing that. A bunch of the agriculture uh, businesses are pushing it. It's becoming, it's awesome to see that people are willing to talk about it and promote people talking about it.
Yeah, yeah, and, like we say, call someone when you need help or whatever, and we'll get into that a little bit more because I have mixed thoughts on that too. But when you don't have to call when you can just go sit down and eat lunch and talk about things, right there is very helpful. I just went out to just near Bridgeport Alliance, kind of in that general area of Nebraska, one of the ranches, Circle L Ranch, that was very much affected by that fire. The Nebraska's biggest state fire, the Morrill fire that was held or that happened here about 4 weeks ago. And she specifically and candidly talked to me about the PTSD she's feeling right now and the help that they are going to need to have to recover from that, and some of the, just seeing those burned babies or her burned calves because it's calving season, and some of that stuff is so traumatic. And here we are. I don't know her real well. I'm standing out at her ranch and we're talking about it live.
That's amazing. I love it. So, Lorrie, talk a little bit about the fear and the hope and the reality that families navigate going through mental health.
So first off, navigating is a key word here, Jason. I could probably write a book. I could probably write a blog. I'll tell you what, if I had to navigate, there is a lot of terminology. There is a lot of stuff that is involved with this. I've had to do a lot of research. And, I think that I have a natural desire to research and want to know things and want to, why are we doing this and how are we doing this and how it's going to affect. I don't think everybody has that. And, sometimes parents are struggling just as much, if not more, as their children. And again, this may be an unpopular opinion, but some of the other folks that I've come across because of these connections in this situation, the parents are on drugs or the parents are doing things that are questionable, that's causing some of those things that happen in their families. I can't imagine somebody not being totally 100% trying to navigate this, if that makes sense to you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. If you're not fully committed, how can you even try to navigate it? Yeah.
And my son's counselor once said to my husband and I, my son is lucky to have parents like you, because a lot of parents would never take the time, the effort, or even focus on the issue. They just kind of skirt across it.
Sure. And I mean, and maybe this will be unpopular opinion. I think that goes back to the stigma. If I don't acknowledge that this is happening, it's not happening.
Yeah,
And that could be part of the parents. Um, so you sent me an email, and the you said the journey is changing you as a parent. Kind of go through what you mean by that.
absolutely. So kind of combining that with the question before, I'm a Christian, and so we all function on hope, and that one day there's going to be a greater purpose for this, for him and for us as a family and what we've gone through. My son has tried to take his own life twice that I know of. There is another time that he didn't tell me, he told another family member, and maybe more than that, Jason, but two that I am fully aware of that um, that we've had to handle. And it wasn't too long ago that we were in ER because he's starting to feel this way again after all these years and all the drugs and I say drugs, medications, all the therapists and everything that we've been through over these years. We've been in residential in Florida, and I can talk about that here, or I can wait for just a moment. We've been in acute therapy, we've been in acute facilities, we've been in all kinds of different situations. How this has changed me as a parent is my confidence, and I love him, and that's what matters. But you question yourself, Jason, as a parent, that you're not doing a good job, that you're the reason. I mean, what did I do? What did I do to cause this? Logically, my head knows that that's probably not right, but my heart doesn't, and they don't connect. And every day when you get off work and you go home and you're afraid to find your son hanging or slit wrist or disappeared is a hell of a feeling that I can't even describe to you. That's awful, awful, awful. Just you never have a moment of rest. It is constant. I hope he's okay. Is he okay? What do I need to do? What can I do? How can I fix it? And I can't fix this, Jason. I can't fix it. And it is a
Right.
god awful feeling.
Yeah, because as parents, we want to be able to fix anything that's wrong with our kids. That's just natural. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I mean, there's going to be a lot of us watching this, and I can't imagine what you and your husband have gone through. But I've known you long enough to know that that fight will never stop. And that's, you talk about your research and all that. That has probably helped you at least help navigate that, because you've kind of found some avenues, and maybe talk a little bit about that, what you found that kind of helps you guys help him.
I'm not sure that we're 100% there yet. I would say, though, that having a renewed, I've always been a Christian, but having a renewed faith, um, having kind of, I've moved and we have a new church, kind of having that renewed Bible study and just getting back into the word and keeping my eyes on where they need to be, because depression and anxiety are not of God. And he never promised that our life is going to be peachy. We're going to have trials and tribulations. So what I have to continue to do is pray for my son and to have hope that things are going to somehow, I don't know if good's the right word, but there's a greater purpose for him and for us. And so that's one way that we've been able to, I guess, get through this. I work out a whole lot, Jason. That is kind of my therapy as well. And I'm done therapy myself, by the way. And that is one way that I am able to handle my emotions and handle my own stress and my own anxiety. And to be honest with you, my husband and I have been to some therapy, because this messes with your marriage. This messes with your family. I have another son who needs my attention too. And it is so difficult when so much of your attention goes to this when your other son needs you as well. And he tries to understand, but we're talking about teenagers and now young men. I don't ever want to be unfair to my kids either, but things just require more attention, more time, more money
Sure,
than
sure.
other things.
Right. Well, and I don't know if you've even watched any of the podcast, and it's okay. You're busy. I get it. But I did a whole show on finding the positives in the negatives. And you can always find a positive in the negative. Sometimes we have to look really, really hard. And when I started this podcast, we were going through with my mother-in-law pancreatic cancer, and she passed away in March.
No, sorry.
And my wife had to, we had preaching sessions basically on the couch to each other. We got to find a positive for today, because we are going down a rabbit hole, and we've got to find something. And my wife was lucky enough to be her mom's caretaker. And so she was with her a lot, worked from her house a lot. My daughter was able to be over there. They were able to video my mother-in-law making the homemade noodles that she. So I said, honey, that's a positive that we can take from this, because without the pancreatic cancer, you wouldn't have taken off time. You wouldn't have worked from her house. Addie wouldn't have been over there so much. So in the month, with her passing away, it's hard to find a positive in that. But
It's
we had to work really hard to get to that point.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct. It is really hard to find that. positive, and it's really easy to tank down with my son. So and I'm an empath, so when he's down, I'm down. I feel what he feels. It is really easy. And I'm going to admit to you that I have gone down that road, that I have let myself get I'm on medication, by the way. When you asked, how it's changed me on a person, guess what? Guess who's on medication now? Because I have to be able to deal with this just like he does. My doctor told me that I probably have PTSD, that my husband and I probably both suffer from PTSD as a result of
Absolutely.
your child trying to take their own life more than once, and all the things that we've been through and the things that he has said and done, and all the navigation that we go through. It is so hard to find that. But I also realize that we have to have joy, and choosing that joy is important. I don't know that I'm great at it though.
Well, with what you've been through, it would be pretty tough. And we always talk about we can't help others unless our mental health is. I'm not going to say perfect because nobody's mental health is ever perfect, but
No.
until we fix our own mental health, it's tough to help others. But that's also a lot of stress that your family's going through, and as I've said, I can't even imagine Lori going through that. But I think we just, no matter what we're going through, we've got to find just a little bitty positive in something. And I when I was talking to the professor in Iowa, she said our brains aren't wired for happiness. Our brains are wired to find the negatives and the hards, because that's what our brain sends our body into protection mode. And I probably did not quote that right, but it's basically saying our minds aren't made to just always be happy and find the positives. We're in survival mode, and so they're always leaning towards the negatives. I didn't get this done, I didn't do that right. And it made so much sense. She said you have to work really hard to train your brain to find the positives. And in you guys the situation, and there's thousands upon thousands probably that are going through something similar. It's got to be tough to find a positive.
It's interesting that she said that to you, because I've had one of his providers tell us that your brain has like what she considered ruts in them, and so it's kind of a habitual type thing as well. So when your way of thinking just goes right into those ruts, whether it's good or bad. So for him, it always goes right to the negative, right in the ruts, and then you bring everyone else down with you. So trying to retrain the brain to go in that is extremely difficult. And then we're also talking about teenage boy that has hormones, and a boy that still has his brain developing in general, because what do they say, a male's brain doesn't fully develop to like 25 years old. So you've
Right.
got all those things going on. But you're right. What I do try to tell him, and I tell him myself, when you think what if, because when you think like he does, it's always bad, right? That's what causes the anxiety, is it's always going to be a terrible situation, the worst, always thinking the worst. I tell him, what if it works out? What if this is successful? What if you're happy? What if, like, think that positive thing. Now, is he really doing it? I don't know. I don't think so, but at least I'm trying. Trying.
Yeah. Well, and maybe just repeating that all the time, one of these days it may stick.
Mhm.
He may go, okay, I get what she's saying now. So go through kind of, and we have a little bit, but some of the emotions that you guys face when your child is in crisis.
So yeah, I've kind of alluded to a little bit of that. Well, first it's just pure panic. It really is. It is pure panic. And even the tools and things that you've been taught on how to cope, like coping skills, like what he's supposed to be learning, all that, they just kind of go out the window, to be honest with you. You just want whatever you're going to do at that moment in time to save your child's life. And it is, I don't even know how to say this. It is so, there's really no words for it. When you want your child to live more than they want to live, it's awful. It is god awful. It is terrible. So at that moment of time, you go through panic. What can we do to fix it? And yeah, that doesn't work. What can we do to get them through this? We got to get through this. We got to change meds. We got to do this. We got to go to the ER. We got to do that. You're going to do whatever you can to try to keep your child alive, because you do not want to walk away. You don't want to leave them in a room alone. You don't want to
Right.
go anywhere. You become that kind of a little bit of a helicopter parent. Then it's frustration because then he's pushing back and you're trying to help and that's not what they want and they're mad at life. They're miserable anyway. They hate themselves and then they kind of turn it on you. Then I get really frustrated. And then you go and you talk to the providers. So when you go to the ER, it is so hard as a parent to keep your calm, to not get mad, to not get frustrated. The last time we were in the ER, we were in there a good 2.5 hours before we were even seen because it was around the holidays. I mean, I wanted to go out there and just lose my cool, but that's not helping anything. And I don't want to model that in front of him if I don't have to, although he's seen me do that plenty of times because I'm a mama bear at the same time. I'm sure your
Sure.
wife is the same way.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So it's just frustration all the way around. And then sometimes they don't do what you think they should do, or they're not doing enough. But what do they really need to do? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I just know I want my son to be okay. I just want my son to be okay. And it doesn't happen, Jason. It doesn't happen.
Right.
So there's a lot of that. And then you get mad at the people around you. So then I start lashing out at my husband. And he's trying his best to. We all deal with these things different. How he was raised to deal with things versus how I was raised to deal with things are completely opposite. So then you're lashing out at each other, or you're not talking to each other. You're closing each other out. So then you have that on top of it. Then you try to go to work and you try to get through your day, and you are so worried about all those things going on at home. I'm better, just me personally, I'm better off continuing to work than staying at home and sitting on my butt all day thinking about it. So I like to be busy. So I
Right.
continue to do those things. And then on top of that, then you have your family members. And nobody ever really knows what to say. And we can talk more about that because I think that's a problem. Well, I don't know if it's a problem, but that's a thing too for all of us. They don't really know what to say. And so then if you're kind of raw in those moments, nothing's ever right. So then I'm mad at everyone who is even trying to help me, even my own mom who's trying to help me, who's worried about her baby, me, and worried about her grandson. So then it's just a whole ripple effect of anger and frustration and annoyance and saying the wrong things and offending each other along the way, or just not talking. So it creates strife all the way around. Everybody's hurting. Everybody's raw. Everybody's trying to figure things out.
Yeah. And so, I mean, early in our marriage, we were young, we had a kid, it was rough. And we would do the same. I'd be upset about something, I'd lash out at Camille the same way. And I cannot think for the life of me who told me this, but they said, you've got to realize it's not you against her, it's you two against the issue. And I mean, it's hard to do, especially going through what you guys are going through. But that hit me pretty hard because it's not me against her. The issue wasn't even between us, and that's kind of what you're talking about. It's not you against your husband. But that's how it comes across. But it's not you against him. It's you two against the issue that we're dealing with, and that I mean that's got to be. I'm gonna say it again. I can't imagine going through what you guys are going through, but knowing you're going to get through it.
I hope so. I hope so because anytime somebody asks, "How's your son?" I can never honestly say good. I'm like, I guess he's okay. He got up today. He said more than 2 words to me today. I guess he's okay. Maybe he's stable. I don't really know because he keeps everything inside, which is not good.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, and my husband didn't know how to deal with this either when this first started. I told him something was off, and I feel like he was brushing me off. And then we went in for a sports physical check at the hospital, and that's when they first started screening for mental health and asking questions. And it came up. They said, "Have you ever thought about hurting yourself?" And he looked at me, and I knew it. I knew it, Jason. And I started crying, and the doctor asked me to step out so that they could talk to him. And I went home and I told you there was something wrong with him. You didn't listen. I told you. And I guess he handled it the best way he could. I was just trying to fix everything, keep working, be there for my other son, keep the household up, keep all the chores up, all the things that you have to do, take care of the animals, all the things that you have to do, and just going forward and just pushing as much as I could. But there came a time when we had to sit down with a therapist and have an honest chat. And that therapist, he's going to love me for telling this story. That therapist pretty much told him, "Do you hear your wife? Do you hear what she's saying? She is out here on her own. Where are you? Why aren't you showing up? And I'll tell you that he did a 360, and Jason, ever since then, we've been a team. He's been supportive. He's a great father. He's a great husband. It's been great. So that was a God thing. That was totally a God
Absolutely. Absolutely. Lorrie, I got to get to one more sponsor quick. Farm Bureau Insurance. Farm Bureau Insurance agent Melinda Hutt in Sterling is your neighbor, and she's part of your community. She's committed to providing you with local personalized service for all of your insurance needs. Let Melinda help you with your auto, home, business, life, and of course, farm and ranch insurance. Melinda can help customize our products to meet your specific needs. Call Melinda 970-526-0202. You deserve more. You deserve a promise. I don't know why I keep apologizing to you, because this is what you do too, is ads and that kind of stuff. So
thing.
uh, so I'm so happy that you're sharing this, and I know that it's a God thing that had me call you and ask if you'd come on, because I guarantee somebody out there is needing to hear this. So thank you again for coming on. So talk to us just a little bit about kind of what you want other people to understand about your family and dealing with these.
I think the biggest thing is that, at least in my situation, I'm sorry, I keep hitting this computer with my hand. In my situation, I can't speak to everyone, that when somebody asks you how he's doing, and maybe they know or maybe they don't know, it is really hard to answer, because you don't want to lie. I am not a liar, and I will not lie. But on the same token, you don't really know. And so sometimes that starts a whole conversation, and people are curious, and it can go in a good way, and we can have a meaningful conversation like we're having now, or it can get weird. And not everyone receives this information very well. And it is a lot for some people, especially if they haven't dealt with it. I would bet a dollar, though, that everyone listening, everybody watching, everybody knows somebody who is dealing with some sort of mental issue, mental
Absolutely.
sickness. And there's a difference between mental health and mental illness. So mental health, you might be feeling a little blue, depressed, you lost your job, something happened to you, you feel down. Mental illness is an actual illness. So I always compare it. When you break your leg or your wrist, you can see the cast. You can see someone is trying to navigate life with that problem with their body, but it's healing. With a broken brain, it doesn't heal, and you can't see it. And that is hard for people to understand. So maybe your child acts a little bit different, or maybe you're acting a little bit different because yesterday he was talking about how he's going to kill himself. You're acting a little bit different. I think it's hard for other people to sometimes take that information in. They don't know how to respond. And I get that. I get that. If I was the other way around, I'm not sure how I would. But that is something I think, when we were talking about some of the things that are needed, some of the resources and challenges and things that are needed, is educating people on how to respond. Because yeah, we all say, pick up the phone, call anyone, call me anytime. Jason, it does not work like that, because I've shared this story with some people that have not received it well. It makes them incredibly uncomfortable. I don't know why. Maybe they dealt with it on their own at some point. Maybe they don't want to hear it. Not everything's peachy in little rural town land, but it's not. And so some people don't respond well. Some people will ignore what you had to say and move on with the rest of a conversation. And that's really tough, because then you don't feel heard or validated. But
Right.
on the same token, you just exposed this huge thing and dropped it on someone that maybe doesn't know you very well, or doesn't know all the things that go on behind the scenes. So a commodity classic, I was doing an interview in a tractor with a really good contact, and afterwards he said, so how are you doing? Really, how are you doing? And he didn't know. He was just being nice, because we've gotten to know each other. I've been doing this for so long. And I told him, I said, right now I'm away from home for a week, and I'm very unsettled. And I told him before, and I spilled it all, and he was very kind and caring and empathetic. And, he said, I haven't dealt with this myself. He said, but I can hear it in your voice. And, I just want you to know I'm going to support you. I'm going to pray for you. That's what I needed then. Since then, when I knew I was going to come on this podcast with you, I texted him and I said, how did that make you feel when I talked about that to you? Because I kind of dropped it on you. Like, you were not expecting me to talk about this sitting in his tractor cab on the commodity classic floor. We were talking about ethanol and farm bill and policy. He was not expecting me to bring this up. And he said he totally felt comfortable, that he wished he'd known earlier that whatever he can do to support, or whatever he can do to learn about that kind of thing is helpful. I don't know what the answer is to all of this, Jason. This is why we need to keep working on this. But when you tell somebody something like this and they change the subject, or they don't receive it like they're offended or something like that, it's hard. It's really hard, because it's awkward. It's awkward for everyone. But on the same note, I am who I am. You asked. So
Yeah,
if we don't talk about it, how are we going to make changes?
absolutely. Well, and it probably makes you feel like this is why I don't talk about it,
Yes,
because of what how you just handled what I was trying to express to you. So why would I talk about it? Yeah,
exactly.
totally get it. Um, so we're gonna wrap this up, but Lorrie, tell us something that brings you guys hope throughout this whole thing. You have your faith, you have, and that's huge. We all need more faith. What brings you hope?
Okay, so in addition to faith, I would say just my son is still young. So we've still got time, that hopefully we can find the right combination of medications and therapy to at least stabilize him, because this is a broken brain that won't be fixed, but finding a way that it can stabilize him so he can have a productive life, so that he can find joy, so that he can feel validated and feel like he's making a positive difference. So I just have to have hope that we're going to keep finding the right people. We're going to keep working at it, Jason. I don't know that I have a great answer for that, but we're going to keep working at it. I do have more hope now that I have more family support, and then I'm talking about it with people like you and your audience.
Well, and so you came to, was it the Legacy? It wasn't the Legacy. Was it the Legacy at the shop a
It
year or
was.
two
It
ago?
was. Mhm.
And I got that message from you, and I had no idea. I didn't know what was going on, and so the message really confused me, and I don't even remember now what it all was, but then I understood after you kind of went through a little bit of what was going on. But I will tell you this, I am so very proud of you for coming on here with me and sharing that. I want to read just a couple quotes that I found, and I do this on every show. It's just I think the good Lord sends me these quotes because I need to hear them, and I want everybody else to hear them. And before I get into them, we were at the Angels Gala this weekend, last night in Colorado Springs. It's a big fundraiser for fallen soldiers and firemen and police, and it will humble you in a hurry sitting in that room watching kids perform whatever. We had one kid named Cooper who wants to be a chef. So the head chef at the Hotel Polaris helped him bake a cake. We sold the cake 3 different times. They kept donating it back, brought 12,500. That kid's face, I mean, his eyes were, it was unbelievable. And this quote I had heard a couple weeks ago, kind of forgot about it, but it hit me big last night. And it says, when we understand that each day is not one more, but one less, we will start giving more value to those things that really matter: our family, our true friends, and most importantly, our mental health. And I was just sitting there going, man, these families lost a father or a mother in the line of duty,
Mhm.
and you can't tell it up there. Those kids were in the spot. In fact, Cooper, I met him that yesterday afternoon, but I had to do mic check for the auction, and so they introduced me to him, and I said, well, Cooper, do you want to just auction off your cake, or do you want me to do it? And he goes, oh, you better do it. I've been in the spotlight enough. And I thought, man, I think he's 10 years old. What a cool kid. But he just made me think about this quote, because he is living that way. He's living, it's one less day, not one more. And so I'll read one more. The amount of good things in your life depends entirely on your ability to notice them. We have good things happen every day, but our minds and emotions bury the good, the positive, and the happy things at times. So again, I'm going to say it. We need to work on changing our mindset to see the positives that we have in our life, even the small ones. And after hearing your story, Lorrie, I think you are going to reach a lot of people that are probably feeling the way you guys are. And again, I'm so proud of you for telling your story to everybody, for being on this show. I think the world of you. Always have. The Queen of Ag, Miss Lorrie Boyer. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Jason.